Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Rox and today I'm going to be going through a few of the books that I read growing up. So I have always been a reader, but this isn't my reading history. I've always been a reader and there were certain books that I read at certain ages. I don't have a lot of the books right here where I am because a lot of them are on the farm, but the ones that are here I'm going to show you, and I'm going to be starting off with ones that I read quite often. And these were often the types of books I read. And these are these ones: Discovering Rats and Mice, Discovering Worms, and what's this one? Discovering Crickets and Grasshoppers. So we had a lot of these types of books. We had ones about snakes. I'm pretty sure there was one about crocodiles. These were a lot of the books I read growing up. They come from a library somewhere. It was a library sale or something. I don't know. My grandmother got them for me, I believe. So these were very often the books I read growing up. There was also a lot of ones about dinosaurs. There were ones about dolphins, about the ocean, just a lot of different topics. And I think these are the first types of books I remember reading. It would also be a thing of my sister reading to me because I have an older sister. So I don't think I was able to read yet myself when I started with these. She read them to me, my mom read them to me a lot, my grandmother read them to me. So these ones are a really big part of my childhood. I also read a lot of the usual fairy tales growing up, but I never read them in English. I only read them in Afrikaans. So those would be ones like Cinderella or Snow White. I read all of those fairy tales. I had this really big red book filled with a bunch of fairy tales. Not me interjecting, but I just wanted to show you that I found one of these fairy tales. This is Sneeuwwitje en die Sewe Dwergjes, which is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This is another one that I read quite often, but also this book came with a CD, I'm pretty sure. So every time I would read the book, someone would be telling me the story. So that really helped. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this real quick. It's a cute book, right? It's cute. It's cute. It's so damaged. It is so damaged. But how iconic are these pictures? They're so iconic. Another one that I tried reading as soon as I could read, but I honestly think it was above my reading level and I didn't fully understand it, so I'll love to read it again. But that is this one. It's called Brulocks and Bittergal. So yeah, this is also an Afrikaans one. But I don't think this was meant for my age because I read it, like I said, as soon as I could read, and it's not meant for someone that young. I'm just going to toss this on my bed so that I can read it again as soon as possible. The next stories I want to talk about is Jakkals en Wolf. Again, this is Afrikaans collection. Obviously, I grew up Afrikaans. It's my first language, so the books I read when I was younger are Afrikaans books. I didn't exactly read this copy, but Jakkals en Wolf is like a story that I grew up with, or stories. They were often told orally because I don't think anyone I knew actually had a physical collection of all the stories. That's how I fell in love with stories, was being told stories by my parents, by my grandparents. But yes, these two characters were definitely the most famous characters of my childhood. They are the most significant, they're the most important, they're the ones that definitely ruled my childhood. The next one is specifically the book I read, and this one really made me fall in love with reading. And that is this little book, which you probably can't tell what it is from this angle or the way it looks. But this is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. So this is a classic, but this is an illustrated children's edition. I actually have let me show it to you. Okay, so this is Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is the same edition this one used to be in. This one I've had since I can remember. I read it also at least once a year. I would read it. This is really where I fell in love with reading. But yeah, I just thought it's cute that I still have this. And it's really the book that got me into reading and into adventure stories. And I love this, man. I'll never get rid of this book. Also, it smells so good. I think it used to be my dad's even. It's very, very old. For the next few, I can't really remember how old I was. But I really enjoyed reading this. And I feel it's quite embarrassing, but you know what? It's fine. I loved reading these, and these are a bunch of Disney Channel books, specifically High School Musical and Hannah Montana. This one is literally just the Hannah Montana episode, 2 episodes in book form, and I ate it up. And then these are the first 6 books in the Stories from East High series. So they followed all the same characters from High School Musical. Just them doing their everyday things at school. The first one is Battle of the Bands. Then we've got Wildcat Spirit, Poetry in Motion, Crunch Time, Broadway Dreams, and finally Heart to Heart. I think there are many more, but these are the only ones I read. I think by the time more came out, I was already over it. But I really honestly had the best time reading these. So next up, we're going to get into a series that everyone has read and everyone loved, and now everyone's embarrassed that they loved it. Twilight. I just remember my grandmother getting mad at me because I spent the entire holiday in her room. We went to go visit her every single holiday, and I didn't come out of my room, and she did not like that. After I finished the main 4 books in the series, I also read The Short Second Life of Bri Tanner, which, from what I remember, was quite good. I really enjoyed this one. It did not have chapters, and it is truly very short. I think in general this was a good time in my life because I didn't have money to buy my own books, and I was often at the library. I can't remember the books I got at the library. I just know they involved a lot of Goosebumps and things. But every Christmas I'd get books. On the next Christmas, since vampires were now a thing, I got the Vampire Diaries. Book 1 and 2, book 3 and 4, and book 5, which is probably one of the worst books I've ever read, and I was so angry at this book. I didn't continue with the series. I did not care. This book just completely ruined it for me, so I couldn't be bothered to pick up anything else. But I think the original trilogy, because I think it was supposed to be a trilogy. I'm not sure when book 4 came out, but the first 3 were actually good books. And I would actually like to read them again. They were pretty good. You've all seen the show, so you know what this is about. Just this one girl who falls in love with 2 vampire brothers. Obviously, after all the Twilight hype, I needed to get some more Stephenie Meyer, and I got The Host. I think this came out in 2008. Yeah, this came out in 2008, so I was about... How old was I? 12? So this one was another favorite. I really enjoyed it. These were just all worlds where I was completely absorbed, and it was my favorite thing in the entire world. Next, I'm going to mention a series by an author that is quite famous, but this is her only young adult series. I only finished it when I was much older, but I started with her series overall when I was about 13, and that is the Viral series. So we can just ignore this. This is a short story collection. We ignore this existence. I gave this book 1 star, and I only read it like 2019. So it's not that long ago, but I shouldn't have bothered. But the original series starts with Virals, then we have Seizure, Code, Exposure, and the final book in the series, Terminal. This one came out in 2015, and I think I read it the year after. It wasn't that long ago, but the entire series is one that I grew up with because I read them for such a long time. This series follows a girl and her group of friends who get infected with some sort of wolf or dog DNA, and they get these superpowers. It's very interesting. The setting is super intriguing. I think it's in like South Carolina. I'm going to see the map. There are always maps in this book. Yeah, it takes place in Charleston, South Carolina, which was super intriguing. The second book in the series is one that made me fall in love with Anne Bonny. She's a pirate, and after reading this book, I wanted to go find out if Anne Bonny was real. Lo and behold, it's a true story. Well, it's debatable. People are like, it's not real. Some say it's real, but it is an actual legend. Another author that I haven't yet mentioned is, of course, Jacqueline Wilson. So I read the Tracy Beaker magazines. I don't recall reading any of the books, but the magazines I read a lot. And this specifically is another one that I read. This one follows 2 girls who find out they're sisters. They share the same dad, but he's present for one, not for the other. The girls also like grew up in very different situations. I'd be interested to read it again just to see how it holds up. I remember thinking like, this is a little deep. This is very deep. That's what I thought when I read it. So I'd be curious to see what I think now. Another author I also really enjoyed reading when I was younger is, of course, John Green. Still one of my favorite authors. I know it's a very basic opinion to have, but John Green is one of my favorite authors. I was like paging through my sister's 17 magazine, and there was a review for Fault in Our Stars, and I immediately had to find that book and read it, and then I just went into like a whole John Green phase. Another series I read when I was younger was obviously Harry Potter. This is actually, you're gonna hate me, but this is the first Harry Potter book I ever read, and you're gonna be like, that's book number 6. Yes, I started with book number 6. It's also why it's so damaged, because I was like 9. I think I was 9. This was 2005. There's the cute little inscription my parents wrote in the book. So I got it, I think I was 9. So those are some of the books I read growing up. There are a lot more that I obviously don't own. I would be curious to know what you grew up reading. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you make lots of money, and I hope you just have a wonderful week. Bye.